I come to fair housing in a way that usually surprises people. I come to it because I had an experience here in Richmond, Virginia that caused me to place an important call. Happily, I placed it to the right place, and that was home. So for me, the story begins a few years ago, just a few years, when I was a member of the faculty at the University of Richmond School of Law. I lived in faculty housing, but you could only stay in faculty housing for 2 years. So, as I got close to the end of that time, I decided to go look for a one-bedroom apartment. On a nice day, I was at the law school, and I decided to go into our student affairs area, and I asked the person there if they have a box or some sort of information on housing opportunities in the Richmond area. I thought that would be an efficient way for me to identify apartments. We collected for the students, why not the faculty? And so I identified a couple of options and pulled some information on one apartment that looked very interesting, looked like it was in the right location and everything. So I placed the call. I spoke with the landlady. We talked about the apartment. We talked about its availability. And then the conversation was over. Later that evening, I was out with my research assistants. I decided to take them out to dinner to thank them for their wonderful work with some of my scholarship. And I got home, and there was a telephone call. And this time, the telephone call was from one of my students. Now, you need to understand that a first-year law student does not call his lawyers at home at night, like 10 o'clock. That just doesn't happen. So you can imagine my surprise when who is calling me? And my student said, did you speak to, and he named the landlady today, and I was thinking, let's see. Yes, I did. Well, she just called me. And she asked me if you were black or white. And I told her, what difference does that make? And she said, I don't admit to those kind of people. And I have to tell you, at that moment, I did not, it was like I felt like I was flipping back to the 19th century, maybe 18th. I knew we were in the 20th century. But I felt like I could see myself on a block, a slave block, being auctioned off. It was so clear to me. Nothing had changed. And as I talked to the student more, he was apologizing to me for having to call me to tell me something like this. I'm so sorry, Professor. I told her I'm not interested in the apartment anymore, but I had to tell you. Mr. Poussin, thank you for calling me. You didn't do anything wrong. Are you okay? I spent more time talking to him because I was very concerned because you see, the way discrimination works is that she assumed because he was white and she's white that he felt the same way. But she had harmed him too. And he was he was trying to work through the harm that he experienced because of that discrimination. When I put the phone down, I thought, what do I do? What do I do? And I called a friend of mine, one of the attorneys in the area, Dr. Gregory, who's now a judge here. And I said, Roger, I'm not sure, seems to me like there might be a problem here with the housing. What do I do? You see, you didn't hear, I'm an antitrust lawyer. I teach torts, health law. I don't And the next day, I sat in my office, went in early because I couldn't sleep, and I sat there until 9 o'clock, watching the clock, and I dialed home. And a very friendly and understanding person answered the phone. I don't remember exactly how I sounded. I'm sure it was a jumble of all kinds of emotions going through the phone, but I have said it in many, many forums, home saved my life. I was angry. I was upset. I felt like someone had taken some important part of me away from me. I was trying to find her. Where is she? I was just a shadow of something. I mean, all of these emotions were happening. From home, I learned about the process of filing a housing discrimination complaint. From home, I learned how to, they gave me a pool, if you will, a list of attorneys that I could talk to identify someone who would represent me. Actually, I remember looking at the list, and I went to the top of the list and decided I was going to interview 2 or 3 attorneys. The first attorney I selected, I went to see him, and after less than 5 minutes, I mean, it didn't even take that long, although I we talked a little bit more. My mind was already made up. He was going to be my lawyer. He understood. And he did a fabulous job. And I'm happy to say that he's the governor of this state. It took 2 years for that litigation to end. And through that entire time, home was there, being supportive, and that was really important. Up until we were finally able to resolve it in court. When I say resolve in court, I mean we were in the middle of trial when the case settled. So we went pretty far. Now, since that experience, I have, and I've told Connie, I said, there is nothing that, if home wants me to talk, I will speak to anybody, anywhere, about what it means to be discriminated against and how home makes a difference. So, what did she do? She hooked me up with a gentleman from another nonprofit housing organization called Hope. And he created a videotape of my story. In other words, I videotaped the story. And that videotape is used all over the country. Now, one day, again, several years after the videotape was completed, the videotape was completed in the 1990s, I didn't realize it, but somehow my son, who was then 8 years old, had an opportunity to view the videotape. And according to the friend who was with him, he turned to his friend and said, "Who hurt Mommy? Who hurt Mommy?" So I thought I'd tell you this little piece. This is what he heard. I taught in talking about discrimination. I told him that you have to imagine that you have a piece of paper. And this piece of paper has a lot of information on it about you. But it's better than a resume. Oh, much better than a resume. It has everything about who you are, what's important to you. Your very essence is reflected on this piece of paper. And what happened is that when that landlady did not want me to be in her apartment, what she did is she crumpled it up and she threw me away. And then I spent the next 2 years will never be the same. It will never be the same. That's why home is important. Home is important. And everything that they do to address this very pernicious and terrible problem. Now, I'm going to conclude at this point. I'm going to say thanks again to Home for having me here. And I want to build on Connie's opening when she said in her remarks that everyone has a part to play in ensuring justice in our America. So I charge each of you to be a plea for justice. What? She's calling us a name right at the end of her remarks? A plea? Not exactly. This is a very special plea. It's a justice plea. So often we think we have to be a big dog in order to make a difference. And that's simply not true. We just have to be little, persistent pleas for justice. Enough